Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, December the 20th, 2019. It is currently 8:49 a.m. Central Time. I hope everyone is having a good day. For those listening to the live broadcast, thank you. For those who will hear a recording of this at some later time, thank you for listening. But if you would like to listen to us when we're actually live on the air and listen to all of our other podcasts, the way to do that is go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, Apple App Store, or the Google Play Store. I'm off to a good start. I'm off to a great start this morning. So let's just stop and do this over, right? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, everyone. It is Friday, December the 20th, 2019. It's now 8:50 a.m. Central Time, and you're listening to a live broadcast of the Theology-Central podcast. If you would like to listen to us when we're actually live, go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Do a search for the Spreaker Podcast Radio app. Spreaker, Spreaker, Spreaker Podcast Radio. Download the app. Once you have the app downloaded, do a search for VBC. That is us, Victory Baptist Church. And once you find us, hit the words by Victory Baptist Church, and it will bring up all of our shows. Every single podcast that we do. You can make us a favorite. Please hit the big yellow button to follow us. As of yesterday, we're up to 20 followers. It's a slow build, but at some point we'll recapture all the people who are using the standalone church app. I don't know why people are having a hard time with that follow button, but I'm going to be persistent and continue to say, please hit that follow button. We really appreciate it. All right. We have a serious subject this morning, a serious subject. I mean, it feels like every time I hit the go live button, we have a serious subject to talk about, but this one is very emotional. So before I jump in, let me say this, all right? We're going to be speaking about abortion. And whenever you speak about abortion and you do a podcast, you have to be conscious of the fact that you have no idea who's going to hear this, and there's a very good chance that someone who has had an abortion may hear the episode that you're doing, may hear the live broadcast that you are doing, and you have to at least try to speak to them and try to make sure they understand. So let's do this. If you have had an abortion, this is not an attack upon you. I believe, obviously, abortion is wrong. I believe it's the taking of a human life, and I believe it's horrible. But as a Christian, I believe that anyone who has had an abortion, that there is forgiveness, that God loves you, that he sent his son to die for you, and that you've committed a sin. I have committed sin, that we're all sinners, but there is forgiveness in Christ Jesus. So I don't want to attack. I obviously disagree with what was done. I believe it was wrong, but I'm not attacking anyone. I will attack the concept of abortion as an act and that it should not be done, but I'm not trying to attack an individual. In fact, I believe many women who have had abortion, I cannot speak for all, but I think many struggle with some internal guilt, with some internal questions of if they did the right thing. And I always feel horrible for those who struggle with that. And I don't want to heap any extra guilt upon anyone. But abortion is a reality in our culture, and it has to be spoken of at times. It has to be talked about. And especially as Christians, we have to continue to speak that we believe it's the taking of a human life, and continue to pray and hope that less and less women would make that decision to have that occur and stop it. Obviously, we could hope that at one day abortion would, everyone would wake up and realize what abortion is, and that would just stop the practice. But as of now, it still occurs, and it's still a very emotional topic. So whenever you speak about abortion, as Christians, I got to say this to Christians, and you're speaking to a woman about abortion, always just be careful how you engage in the conversation, because unless you know the woman, there could be a very there could be a very good chance that the woman you're speaking to has had an abortion, and she's going to approach the topic from an emotional standpoint. And once the discussion becomes, from the viewpoint of emotion, it's hard then to be rational. It's hard. You can try to make all the points you want, but they're not going to hear them because there's something emotional going on. So you have to be careful when you speak about it. Christians will hop on social media and just say all kinds of things about abortion. And you're like, wait a minute. People who are reading your comments, they may have had an abortion. They're not going to read those comments the way you think they should read them. They're going to see those comments through the lens of an emotional response. So sometimes we have to be, I've said it so many times, very few controversial, very, how can you say, very complicated issues. It can't be resolved in social media posts. You're not going to solve. It just seems that we've reached this level where people will hop on social media to deal with the most complicated issues in the world, and you're not going to resolve them. No one is speaking to each other. They're speaking past each other. They're speaking at each other. And sometimes we have to slow down and go, whoa, this is a complicated issue. Because especially with abortion, you can say, well, abortion is not complicated. It's complicated because so many women have had them, and now they have this emotion. And if you tell them, hey, you murdered a child, they're not going to hear that. They're going to hear, wait a minute, you're calling me a murderer, and you've got to walk them through that process and then be there for them after they come to that understanding of what has occurred. It's a very complicated and serious subject. Now, I want to get that out of the way. So I'm not attacking anyone. And if you're a woman who's had an abortion, there is forgiveness in Christ Jesus. Please understand that. God loves you. He sent his son for you. There is salvation. There is hope. There is forgiveness. You can move forward. You have a life in front of you. And you can use that life for good. It's not that you should be destroyed, or you should be branded, or you should be marked, or you should be, punished for the rest of your life. That's not what, hopefully, no Christian should treat you that way or act that way. But we are going to have to deal with the issue. And I'm going to approach this issue from a different perspective, all right? The goal of this live broadcast, the goal of this episode of the Theology Central podcast is not so much to speak about abortion, but it's to speak about something happening within our society. And there is something currently in the news in regards to abortion that I think demonstrates what is happening, all right? And so abortion is a part of this story, but it's not really the focus. You'll see what I'm going to do here in a minute. If you've been listening to me for any length of time, you know that I have a very specific theory, a very specific view of what I believe is happening within our society. I believe that when you look at history, you can see how society evolves, how it changes. And if you pay very close attention, sometimes you can kind of predict where it's going, and you can see trends. And I think we're in the middle of a shift in the culture. And I don't believe it's necessarily a recent thing, but I believe it's becoming more and more evident. If we go back, there was a time that what was happening in society, there was an attack upon truth. And relativism became the philosophical lens in which people viewed the concept of truth. Relativism. Truth is relative. That's your truth, it's my truth. My truth, your truth, and neither one of us is right, neither one of us is wrong, because it's just our truth. I have to be true to my truth, my truth, my truth. And it wasn't about a truth or the truth or a transcendent truth. Everyone had their own truth, and that was viewed as specifically okay. Even if your truth was wrong, but the argument was your truth couldn't be wrong because it was your truth. Truth became relative. There was this attack upon truth. This happened in society. There's still a relativistic philosophy that governs our society. It came into the church. It came everywhere. It came into education. It was just a major issue, and many did not address that was the root problem. right? Many Christians were still yelling about truth, not realizing society had abandoned truth and they no longer believed in truth, which is bizarre because they would say they didn't believe in truth, yet claiming that their view about truth was true. And it was true for everyone, which would mean they believe in a transcendent truth. But we won't get into all of that. But I believe a shift has occurred. Relativism in regards to truth is still a prevailing philosophical view that is evident in our society. But it started evolving. It started changing, okay? Went through a metamorphosis, I guess you could say. And it turned into, listen, not relativism in regards to truth, but relativism in regards to reality. Now, reality is relative. What do I mean by that? Well, if someone doesn't identify, like they're born a biological male, but they don't identify as a male, well, they just deny that reality. That is not their reality. Their reality is something different. Their reality is they're actually a female. And then what they want to occur is they want everyone to go along with that identity. They don't identify as a male, even though they were born a biological male. But they don't identify as that. So now they deny reality. And then everyone is supposed to go along with their denial of said reality. This is an attack upon what is real. We've started with an attack upon truth. We've now evolved into a denial of reality. And you're like, well, what does this have to do with abortion? Let me ask you a question. If a state decided to pass a law, I say you want to have an abortion, perfectly okay. Abortion is legal. We're going to allow you to have an abortion. However, prior to having an abortion, we're going to make you do two things. Number one, you have to see a sonogram, an image of your baby in the womb. And second, you have to listen to its heartbeat. Then you can have an abortion. So what they're doing is saying, here is the reality. We are going to give you an information so that when you consent to have this procedure done, right, it is an informed consent. We're telling you, this is what you're going to be removing from your body. Here's an image of it, right? Yes, with our technology today, that sonogram is going to really show you that it's a baby, all right? It's really going to show you that. And here's its heartbeat. Make sure you understand what you're removing from your body has a heartbeat. Now, there are some who are saying absolutely not. That is wrong. You cannot do that. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. That's the reality. The reality is this is what it looks like. It has a heartbeat. This is the reality. But no, it's a denial of reality. No, you don't need to see the reality. You don't believe it's a baby. You should not be forced to see anything that would say contrary to the reality you believe. You believe in a reality that what is inside of you is not alive. It's just a blob of cells. It's just flesh. It's nothing. You have the right to have it removed. You should not be informed about what the reality is. It's an attack upon reality. I know that's not how people view abortion. We get into an argument about murder, and I understand that. I believe it is the taking of a human life. But I believe there's a deeper philosophical issue at hand. There was a time people were denying truth, and this is a denial of truth, right? Because they believe truth is relative. But there is an attack upon reality, which is obviously the logical next step. If truth is relative, then reality is relative. And so a state wanted to pass a law that says, hey, this is what you have to do. And it became controversial, and people started fighting this law, and they wanted it to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Well, on Wednesday, I heard a commentary on Christian radio in regards to this discussion. And so I want to share it with you, but I want you to hear what I'm saying. This is about reality and the denial of reality. We can't deny reality. And if you listened to me yesterday, I did 2 programs in the situation that's going on at Bethel Church, where a 2-year-old died, and I guess in their minds they want to deny reality and say, God is going to resurrect this baby, and I don't know how long they're going to continue having services. At some point, I think the child died on Saturday. Here we are on Friday. I don't know if they've stopped yet. But that's a little bit of the same thing. There is a thing called reality, and you can deny reality all day, but it doesn't change what is real. You can argue that truth is relative, but there is still truth. We have a philosophical problem in this country, and Christians are going to have to learn that now when we speak Scripture and we proclaim Christianity, that we're speaking it to a culture that says, well, that's your truth, my truth, doesn't matter. Okay, you can't tell me I'm wrong because your truth, my truth, it's both true, right? Well, that's going to be hard to convince them otherwise. You have to then show them that truth is real. And then there's a reality that they deny. Well, God is real. Well, that's your reality, not my reality. I don't identify with your reality, and I identify with my reality. And my reality is just as real as your reality. And you're like, no, there's one reality. There either is a God or there isn't a God. What we want to be real doesn't matter, right? And I'm stressing that. So I think this story about abortion captures what is happening in society. And I don't know where the next step we go. And some will argue that here's what happens. Once society, because I think this can be clearly proven, that society at large is becoming more secular. We are in a post-Christian world. People are turning against Christianity. In some cases, becoming more and more hostile from Christianity. And once there is a denial of God, well, then there's going to be a denial of truth and a denial of reality, because God would be the ultimate standard of truth. God would be the ultimate example of reality. He's the one who created everything. When you deny a creator, you deny a transcendent moral being, then truth becomes relative, reality becomes what you wanted, and society begins a downward spiral. And how far down it will go, no one really knows. The idea of a God protected us from some of this. You throw out God, you throw out truth, you throw out reality, and then you become really your own God, and you get to determine what is true. You get to determine what is real. And we're seeing that literally happen right now in our society. And this story, just to me, is a symptom of this greater philosophical problem. What is happening in our society is a philosophical problem, and Christians are going to have to figure out how we speak to a culture that is denying truth and denying reality. But listen carefully to this. I may jump in and offer a comment here, but listen carefully to this report.
Wednesday, December 18th. Having a conversation concerning today's headlines and real-life challenges. I'm Tom Lamprecht, along with Pastor Harry Reeder. Stay with us as we apply a biblical worldview with gospel solutions to put the issues of today in perspective. Harry, today I want to revisit a story we did last week. Last week we went to the front page, the headlines, where we found out that the Supreme Court decided not to take up a lower court's decision to affirm Kentucky's state law, which requires doctors, before they perform an abortion, to show a sonogram to the mother. She would need to see the baby and hear the baby's heartbeat. That story has gone from the front page to the editorial page. There's been a lot of commentary, both pro and anti, concerning this decision of the Supreme Court not to take up this case, potentially overruling the lower court.
So it was determined in the state of Kentucky that if a woman seeks an abortion, she ought to be informed. She ought to have all of the medical knowledge that she needs. And the argument was, we now have medical technology. This medical technology has been a great blessing to the pro-life movement. It's called the ultrasound. And now with digital capabilities, what used to be just a blur, you can almost see the outline of the face of the baby. What was it one pro-abortion advocate says? The fetus beatus? What they were calling the fetus now has a face, and the fetus beatus, now that mothers and dads can see, oh my goodness, and many go and they'll get that first picture of that baby and actually bring it home and put the baby's picture on the refrigerator. And so this has been an unbelievable instrument. In fact, we have raised money for a portable mobile ultrasound equipment with medical personnel and we actually move it throughout the city so that people can have access to this without charge as a step of the prenatal care, and also meet with the nurses. We're going to be parking it right in front of the proposed rebuilding of Planned Parenthood. We have been without an abortuary in Birmingham for quite some time. Planned Parenthood is trying to come back in, and so we'll be parking that mobile unit right in front, and it will be free. But in Kentucky, it's now mandated that the explanations of the ultrasound and hearing of the heartbeat be given so that women, when they're making this crucial decision, will not years later say, "Oh, I wish I knew." So we want to give full access to full medical knowledge so that when the decision is made, it's informed consent. Well, I applaud the legislators of Kentucky for establishing that. I applaud Governor Matt Bevins for staying the course with his legal counsel, particularly Steve Pitts. I'm grateful for the highlight that my friend Al Mohler has brought to this as well, and I believe it deserves to be highlighted, because I think it was a profile in courage. When that law was struck down at a federal court level, they appealed it, and the full weight of the governor's office and his legal counsel went to work to support what the legislators had done in this pro-life legislation. Then it went to the Sixth Court of Appeals, which upheld it. And the basic argument that was brought by the lawyer, Mr. Pitts, was that this is giving women information that you should not withhold from them. Now, what's interesting, as it got to the Supreme Court, sometimes it's not just the cases that Supreme Court justices hear, it's the cases they don't hear. I think we're going to be talking about this years from now. I think this was a real blow against the genocidal movement of abortion. And here's one of the reasons. The Supreme Court got 9 justices. Now, you've got 4 justices that everyone knows is pro-abortion. Why did not one of them whip the other 3 into shape and say, let's hear this? They didn't, because they knew that this was not the case they wanted to hear. This was not the case that they wanted the abortion movement to be decided upon. This was not a case that they felt that they could win, because this is a case of giving information, of giving truth to someone. And therefore, when you give truth to someone, it's hard to argue against that. Right now, the opposition is saying this is a blow against free speech, because doctors ought to have the freedom not to give this information. So now the pro-abortion people are in a position of saying, here is a medical instrument that's available to give information to you concerning the child within you, but we are saying that we want to support an industry that would conceal that information from you because we don't think you can be trusted with that information. Where on the other hand, the pro-life movement says, hey, you can go talk people into trying to have an abortion if you want to. You've got the free speech to do that. Let us have the free speech, not only the free speech, but the mandate. You've got to give all the information available to the woman so that her decision can be fully informed, instead of a position, hey, we can't trust that woman to have full information, so we'll withhold information because we want the outcome to be the choice to kill the child in the womb. We want that outcome, and we know that outcome is in jeopardy if full information and the reality that what you have is a child within you is made manifest. The other part of this, though, is that while you had the courage of the governor, this governor then lost the next election, and now you've got a pro-abortion governor. Elections have consequences. You now have a governor who has legal counsel who, instead of supporting the sanctity of life, will now try to oppose the sanctity of life. Just think, if Matt Bevins, the governor, and his legal counsel had not pursued this when it was denied by a federal court, we would not have this victory. Well, now you got a governor who would not have pursued it. Now you've got a governor who will not support it. We have had this time and time again where legislators have brought forth pro-life legislation and governors and attorney generals have not supported it. That's where Kentucky now finds itself. Of course, my heart sinks whenever someone does what's right and then they meet the consequences of not being elected. What befuddles me is, if anything, the legislative branch of Kentucky is more pro-life now than it was prior to the last election. But yet, at the governor's level, a courageous pro-life governor has lost, and we have lost access to his counsel, who was so effective. Now, folks, there's some great lessons here for the Christian World in Life View. Can I give you just two? Number one is this: we need people with courage, no matter what it costs, to do the next right thing, such as Mr. Pitts, the lawyer who so effectively argued this case to the Sixth Court of Appeals, to the point that the 4 pro-abortion justices of the Supreme Court did not want to take it on. And then secondly, a governor who put his authority and reputation on the line for life. And no matter that you lost the election, I want this governor to know you did the next right thing, and that should be applauded. And while it was not applauded at the ballot box for whatever reason, it is rightly applauded, and so I would so applaud you. Here's a second World in Life View issue. Truth is powerful. What has been the greatest instrument, other than people doing the next right thing in fighting this battle for the sanctity of life? It has been an amoral medical instrument called an ultrasound, a sonogram, because it let us see what people were fabricating, telling women, all you've got is a mass of tissue within you. Now the truth can be seen. You've got a baby. Look at the face. Look at the hands. Look at the arms. Tom, even the pictures of the baby sucking their thumb in the womb. That pro-abortion advocate was telling the truth. The fetus beat us because it's not just a fetus. This is a person. And we are called to preserve life. Pastors, leaders, Christians, proclaim the truth, always in love, but always proclaim the truth. When the light shines, then the darkness disappears. Light always dispels darkness. And here a simple medical instrument was able to give the light that what you have in the womb is life. This is a person. And that person deserves all of the rights to life. And that will ultimately be what undermines the culture of death.
As we close out for today, let me remind you that Harry Reeder's new book.
There you have it. Now, I want you to think about this, because you had people fighting not to allow this information to be given. They were like, no, the doctor does not have to give this information. And I want you to understand that perspective. Hey, here's information that you would think a patient should have before making a decision to have a medical procedure, informed consent, and they don't want informed consent. They don't want them to be informed because they want that reality to be hidden. Now, they use the term, an attack against truth or hiding truth. I want to look at it from a denial of reality. There is a reality of what's going on inside the womb. There is something there. The issue of abortion isn't about choice or no choice. It's about what is the reality. Is it a baby? Is it a human life? If it is, then to remove it is the killing and the taking of that life. This is an issue of reality. And the debate about abortion has always been an argument over reality. It's not a baby, it is a baby. It's not a baby, it is a baby. It's not a baby, it is a baby. And then what happens is, instead of making that the argument, it turns into choice, freedom of choice. You're a man. How dare you tell a woman what she can do with her body? The issue is, what is the reality? Is it a baby? Medical technology today, I think, can clearly demonstrate that's a life. It has a heartbeat. Has its own brain waves. It moves. It can react to sounds outside. There's something going on there. And that is the reality. And it's just amazing that the pro-abortion side would want that reality to be suppressed, hidden, and not given to the mother. They're all about choice. If choice is really your argument, then you want that woman to have all the information so she can make an informed choice. Why would you want to hide that information from the mother if all you care about is choice? If all you care about is choice, then you want her to have every bit of information possible so that she can make an informed choice. Either your argument is, I am pro-choice, All right, so you want choice to be the ultimate decider. Well, then you want that woman to be informed to make that choice. Or is your argument really, I'm not for choice, I'm for abortion? All right, I think, and I just think that this is simply a symptom of a larger problem, and that larger problem, let me say again, is an attack upon reality. We're seeing it all over society. Reality is what anyone wants it to be, no matter what science says. And it's just kind of odd that at one point in time, Christians were the ones attacked for being anti-science. Hey, you science deniers, you're dumb, you're uneducated, and now you're like, wait a minute, okay, there's chromosomes that show if you're a male or female, you deny that, but we're the ones against science. Wait a minute, here's information that shows what's happening in the womb, that's alive, but we're the ones who deny science. It's just a weird shift in the cultural climate. And we have to see what's happening so that we know how to address it, that we see this shift and we can speak to it in an informed way. We have to be as wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove in how we speak to the world. And we cannot do that if we don't see what is happening in society. This, to me, now their approach to the story was different than mine. I think this is an attack upon reality. They just don't want the reality to be seen, and they're going to suppress that reality so that woman can live in a fake reality and then act according to what she believes to be real, which is just, well, not actually real. What is happening in those clinics is a human life with its own heartbeat, all the different signs of life, their life is exterminated. They're taken and they're killed. And at some point, I hope one day, and again, to me, this is not even a religious issue. This is an issue about life. This is an issue about life. I hope that one day someone wakes up and society wakes up and realizes what has been done since Roe v. Wade. I hope one day society wakes up and goes, man, I cannot believe in a society we did that. But they did that because there was an attack upon truth, an attack upon reality. All right, you can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. All right, everyone have a great day. I hope that I can, I may be going up to the church today to do a lot of different recordings. We will see. I've got a lot of things to get ready for Sunday. So we will see if there's something you want me to talk about or to cover or a Bible passage, anything. Just email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. All right, thanks for listening to this live broadcast of the Theology Central podcast. And the Theology Central podcast is a podcast where we are dedicated to making theology central. God bless.